Good afternoon, Patriots, and welcome to another edition of Comfy Sunday. As always, I'm your host, RP. Joining me without fail is my co-host, M3, and our super special guest of the evening, Corin Nemec. We've got a whole bunch to talk about tonight, guys. Please do me a favor, don't forget to like and share this broadcast. I just put it out on Twitter myself, might as well do my part. Almost 1,000 people watching, 377 likes. Already got a super chat too. Thanks, buddy. Thank you to all the mods, keeping the chat comfy. Thank you, Real Red Pill Girlfriend, for watching. I love you. Appreciate you being here. I hope everyone here is ready for another exciting and stimulating chat. Thanks to everybody who's been hanging out, getting that pre-show conversation on. All right, gang. Please, everyone, do sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, and we'll be right back after a brief word from our sponsor. Panic is highly contagious, especially in situations when nothing is known and everything is in flux. Well, the world we live in today is in flux, and it's filled with a flood of information that's often as much gossip as fact. Now, that makes it hard to know what the situation really is, and it also makes it easy for people to panic and make bad decisions. The only way not to get caught up in that chaos is to have a plan allowing you to avoid dealing with empty store shelves, long lines, and in the worst case, desperate people. Use today to prepare. A great place to start is storing food in your home, and I'm prepared myself, and I even ordered more recently. Now, the experts at My Patriot Supply have told me that orders have now reached about 100 times the normal volume, and they're shipping on a first-come, first-served basis. With this unprecedented emergency, orders are being delayed, sometimes 8 weeks or more. I urge you to add your order to mine today, because the sooner you order, the sooner you can get your purchase. Take action so you're ready for what's coming and save $70 on a 2-week emergency food kit when you go to my special website, preparewithredpill78.com. Those that know what's coming are preparing today. Go to preparewithredpill78.com. Once again, that's preparewithredpill78.com. And remember, when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Methods, how are you today, buddy?
Doing good, man. How are you doing tonight?
I'm excellent. And please, together, let's welcome our guest this evening, first-time guest and a longtime patron of the channel, Corin Nemec. What's up, buddy?
Just chilling. This is true. I am a very long-time patron of this particular channel. I've got a handful that it's interesting because because I'm always very interested in what's going on out there. And when the Q thing first started up, the Q movement first started up, I'm obviously going to track with that because, I've been one who came up through, the sovereignty movement into the truther movement, into the, that whatever,
Sure.
You can label it whatever you want, you're just trying to find stuff out. But oddly enough, at that time, the ability to still search freely on YouTube was still there. I mean, all the stuff that I used to like, but I saw it trickle off because, all of my reading and following of stuff has happened really from the late 80s all the way through the 90s and into the early 2000s. And then once YouTube came out, all this stuff, I really started doing a lot more of my research online, like most other people, and then referencing back and forth between what I have in my books and what I find in open source. so yeah, I mean, tracking with it, it's like I found you and I found a couple of others. I won't throw anybody else's name out there because this is y'all's channel, but
Appreciate
found methods on be obviously through everybody and his Twitter threads and all of that, and I'm interested in what's in what's true and what's real, and I'm not afraid to look at whatever it is that is of interest to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, if someone's going to call me crazy because I'm following what's happening in the Q movement, well, guess what? I'm also following what's happening in mainstream media. Does that mean I'm crazy too? I'm following what's happening in all kinds of areas of life, of whether it be information or entertainment or whatever. But so, those kind of labels are tricky. You know what I mean? They're really tricky because then what it does is it makes people afraid to look into something because then they'll be tinfoil hat guy.
Sure.
And that's just complete and utter nonsense. You know what I mean? For me, it's like you got to go fearlessly into the night and bring your torch with you.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
And your sword, your flaming sword.
I can totally level with you there. I mean, this is super important because, as far as I'm concerned, understanding what's happening in the mainstream media gives us a framework for, understanding what the truth actually is. Just because they're talking, a bunch of fake news doesn't mean that what they're saying doesn't have some level of value. I mean, we can look at it, we can see what they're trying to tell us, and then we can see what they're actually telling us, which in my mind points us in the direction that we need to go. It's a little bit of sleight of hand, look over here, not over here. So I'm going to be looking at where they're telling us not to look. So I like that. I like the idea that you're going to be taking a look at a bunch of different places. Well, listen, for anybody who doesn't know who you are, I want to get into like a little introduction and we can go through your history. I mean, you've had a very interesting life. Obviously, Methods and I have had a couple of chances to talk with you off camera. But before we do that, speaking of what's happening right now in the Q movement, I know everybody here is probably very aware that there was a new post today, and we would be remiss if we didn't at least go over that one single post because I know people are going to be bringing it up throughout the whole show. So let's go ahead and take a look. We have post 3988 today, all right, and there is what appears to be some type of steeple. Methods, is this a church or is this maybe an institution of higher learning? Do you happen to know?
I had the tab pulled up and didn't know that I needed to keep it up. So let me
put you on the spot.
Right. But yeah, no, they found it. It was actually tied to the previous post, or with the two lanterns. The same area, the same website. I can grab it real quick and put it in the chat.
I just want to say it looks almost like Anubis, the Egyptian god, at the top of this steeple. I mean, I realize I'm the only one looking at it, but Corin, if you've got the stream pulled up, it should show up any moment. But Methods, yeah.
I don't know where it will pop up on the screen. I only see your face.
That's a problem.
But yeah, I mean, the whole idea of the post itself is very interesting because we had it tagged the Maria Bartiromo tweet, which I'm sure you'll pull up.
Yep, got it right now.
It's talking about her sources telling her that he's going to be exonerated. Mm-hmm. And first off, fantastic news. All about seeing that happen. Yeah. Needs to happen. It's been late, but you can kind of see the timing of it. So we get his letter on Friday, which was very blunt to the point, obviously laying out how he was set up and how they targeted his family, and he was led by corrupt lawyers that he thought he could trust and all that. That happens. They bring up again that there's a special prosecutor looking into the situation that was appointed. And then now we're getting this information. You can kind of see it all just avalanching out, right?
Right. And I just, just in case anybody isn't aware, the special prosecutor that Barr appointed to look into the Flynn case, and this was back in January, so it's been going for a couple of months now, but his name is Jeffrey Jensen. He's a chief federal prosecutor from St. Louis. And he was actually nominated by President Trump back in 2017. So I would have to say that the fact that we're getting this news from the DOJ, Flynn potentially being exonerated this week, it's only because Barr put this special prosecutor in. And of course, we're not going to know about the work that they were doing up until now. They kept quiet, as prosecutors who are worth their salt are going to do. They're not going to release that information in the same way that prosecutors from the left and the deep state have done done in so many years past. And, I think this is a great opportunity to tell people who might have a little bit of doubts in their minds that something is happening, that something clearly is happening. Once Flynn is exonerated, he's going to be able to talk. And there's going to be so much information that I bet you Flynn is going to be dropping. And not just in the public domain, but also legally in terms of investigations that are going to be taking place. And yes, exonerated, not pardoned, because he's done nothing wrong. And that is why President Trump has not pardoned him up until this point. I would love to actually, Corin and Methods, if you have any thoughts on that particular matter.
I don't know if I can't see the image, but Anubis would be a representation of a death cult. It's the god of basically the gatekeeper to the underworld, similar to like a Poseidon or whatever else. But I can't see it myself, so I don't know if it is Anubis or if it's not Anubis. But Anubis is a pretty obvious looking character.
Yeah.
But that would be strange to see it on top of a church.
Well,
very strange.
That's the thing. I don't know what it is. But it's like a silhouette, and it looks like you've got the ears. Gotcha. So that was me.
It might just be a gargoyle or something.
Could be.
Well, I found the link, Red Pill. I'm gonna drop it in here. Anon's found a website with that same image.
Okay.
And it's referring to Paul Revere and everything. Like I said, from the previous, it's that oldnorth.com.
Okay. Are you doing that on Discord? Maybe not. I don't know. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and get that pulled up, and we'll see if we can't take a look at it. But Corin, again, buddy, thanks for being here. That's all we wanted to talk about with the post. But just to go back to just the whole Q movement and everything like that. For me, it's like I don't see any problem or any reason why someone shouldn't be able to look at it with an open mind and make a decision for themselves, what they think about it, whether they think it's BS or there's an element of truth to it or it's a head fake or whatever else. It doesn't matter to me what somebody else thinks about it. I don't feel like I should be judged because it's an interesting topic and there's a thread there that is fascinating because there is a lot of circumstantial evidence to support what the theory is behind it. And circumstantial evidence, as we all know, is what leads to physical proof. Right. And no matter who or what is behind it, whether or not it's actually someone connected to the president, I'm just going to go on record saying I believe it is. The thought process behind it, the driving point is asking us to do the research for ourselves, to look deeper, to think more critically about what we see and what we're presented, whether it's, here on this channel or on the mainstream media or what the politicians say to us. If we're using discernment and when we're looking at things and not just accepting it being spoon-fed, whatever it is, then we're going to have a much better chance of being successful from here on out. I'm hoping that this is going to be a major turning point in history, not only for America, but for the rest of the world. This is a global movement. It really is worldwide at this point. Go ahead.
Before you move on, Red Pill, first off, when you were asking me for it, I was talking and I was muted, so that was just a fail in general. I had dropped the link in the chat for the Old North stuff, and then RDoc had just sent me, and I'm sure he sent it to you too, but I'll send it in Discord. He found a closer image of that.
Okay.
Statue-looking thing. I'm dropping it in our chat real quick so you can have it. Thank you, RDoc, for that. No riddles, just a picture.
It is not Anubis, but here, I'm just going to show it to everybody. What is it? It looks like just a decorative thing, but it looks like maybe a lobster claw. I don't know.
Well, my first thought was torch.
A torch? Okay. Yeah. It could be. It could be.
I have no idea.
I can see that.
Oh, sure. I can picture a lobster, the way that the flame would go up, how that could look like, like a torch could look like a lobster claw.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right.
And that would also make sense, the Torch of Freedom. That would also make sense as an analogy.
Right on. Well, I want to start with a couple of super chats. Looney Tune said he'll be at work, but he's a huge Stargate SG-1 fan. Wanted to know why you left Stargate SG-1, and also what kind of technical info from the show he thinks is real in a soft disclosure. So, like I was saying earlier, for anybody who doesn't know you're an actor. You were involved in many different productions, both on television and in film, and you've escaped Hollywood. You're one of those people who had your eyes opened and you ran straight out of there like a bat out of hell. So, I want to talk about
it wasn't like anybody was trying to talk me into staying.
Well, it doesn't matter if they were trying to keep you or not. You left, and I think you probably made the best move for yourself. I mean,
well, I did it for my family. Is how it started. When I had kids, I grew up in Hollywood. Junior, I came out from Atlanta, Georgia, even though I lived closer to the city in Atlanta, but I came out in the early mid 80s to LA. Even though I had been out there and visited my dad, because he was already living out there at the time. He's in the film business, production designer in the film business, and was art director on the movie Goonies, which is the movie that inspired me to become an actor. But
just one of my childhood favorites too. Just
that's what set me off, and the fact that he worked on it. He designed the entire ship and the interior of the cave and all of that. That's all his design work. But anyway, I mean, just growing up in Hollywood and just how mad it was, and the kids at the private schools were far more derelict than the public school kids even. And when my daughter got to be of age to get out of preschool and all of that, me and my ex-wife were just like, she went to to high school in LA, and we're just like, there's a better life for our kids than what we grew up with here. And it's been the right move for sure, and I, being from the South anyway, coming to Texas, it wasn't like I didn't go through some kind of crazy culture shock or anything. You know what I mean? I'm from Arkansas and, grew up in Georgia and moved out here, moved out to LA in the mid 80s, and then moved to Texas in 2005.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Virginia, thank you for that. Jill Forthman, thank you for that as well. Elderly Cat Patriot and Brenda Snyder both joined as a member. Jack Randall, appreciate you. Robert Morgan said, Corin, super stoked you're amongst us. Thanks, RP and M3. Redbird says, red pilling is so hard, but I've been at it for many years. But just this year, I red pilled my older brother. Now he is thirsty for the truth. Where we go one, we go all. Good job, Redbird. Crazy Boots says, any idea on how much food we need to stock up on? Months, years. Thanks for doing what you do. Corin, I know you're a bit of a prepper. I mean, how much food do you keep on hand?
I have from Patriot Food Supply. I got for one person, I have a year's supply.
Okay.
For four people, roughly 3 to 4 months.
Okay. I mean, that's what I've got too. We've got two people, then plus my real red pill girlfriend and her kids. So I got enough on hand for about 3 or 4 months myself.
There was a question that you'd mentioned in the other super chat though about Stargate that I definitely don't want to forget, especially regarding the super chats. He had asked about the technology and Stargate and all of that, and it's not the first time that I've been approached, especially doing the conventions, the Stargate conventions, and the science sci-fi anime conventions around the world. I do a lot of those, and I love to travel. I do street art as well, so I've done street art all over the world.
Cool.
Too. My street art is all on Instagram under the169, THE and the number 1, 6, and 9.
Okay.
Which boils down to 7, which is my birth number.
Cool.
And my hat size and my ring size, not my shoe size. But anyway, so the idea of that's been presented to me about being a real Stargate or not a real Stargate or anything like that. I've been presented with that a number of times, and going back into Egyptian mythology and all that, they do have the symbol for what's called a Stargate, which that's a whole nother ball of wax I can get into from a little bit of time I spent up at infiltrating the Rosicrucian College in San Jose. Did a little investigating into the pyramids and stuff, and found some wild stuff. In fact, actually, I found this pamphlet on what the pyramids were supposedly really for there in the bookshop. But I had found in Manly P. Hall's library, I had found what I believe was the full manuscript to what this booklet was, and it was a hand typed and just bound in kind of a it wasn't like a leather bound, like a proper bound book, but it was some wild stuff about. Well, we'll have to get into that some other time.
Okay,
we'll talk Hollywood now, but anyway, so the pyramids themselves were the Stargate, as far as that goes, in that theory. But as far as what would be a modern representation of that, you could say CERN. Well, if you look at it, it looks a hell of a lot like a Stargate, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I would say that if you're talking about any advanced technology that's looking into actual Stargate technology, that's the closest thing I can think of on planet Earth that would match up to anything real that we know of that exists, that potentially, could be a type of interdimensional either communication device or portal, or maybe they're just smashing atoms. Who knows?
Well, this is something that's an interesting idea. I've been told that the intelligence services have like liaisons that work on different projects, maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So because, there's like a military,
Yes.
almost Space Force element to Stargate.
You also get your scripts approved or disapproved by different agencies as well.
Really?
So they can remove, or they can force remove certain content from your scripts if they want to.
Do you remember any content that they specifically inserted when you were on any project?
That's all questionable. It just depends on what kind of narrative you think that somebody's trying to run, or what they might be getting out of it. I did a big, huge sci-fi film years ago called Solar Crisis with Jack Palance and Peter Boyle and Tim Matheson and Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston played my grandfather, and we had this scene on the beach where I'm like washed ashore half dead, and he comes down and cuddles me in his arms and everything, and he just had that quintessential like mothball old man breath. But I was like, I don't care, it's Charlton Heston, man, give it to me
from my cold dead hands.
And but that whole movie was all a propaganda about the geez, I just went completely blank. The solar crisis, about the heating up of the Earth and the atmosphere and everything.
The Green New Deal.
It's basically it would be like a movie that you would show people before you send them to vote on the Green New Deal.
Okay. All right. Let me say, Crazy Boots, thanks again. Debbie Spates, hey, Corin, I've never forgotten you. Ever since the movie, I know my first name is Steven. RP Methods twit suspended today for sharing so much truth. So yeah, my first name is Steven. Was that your first movie, or was that your first large movie?
No. My first large movie was a movie called Tucker, The Man in His Dream. I played Noble Tucker, the middle son. Christian Slater played my older brother.
Yeah.
Jeff Bridges was the father, and you had Martin Landau in that, and Frederick Forrester. Oh man, what an act, dude! It was great working with him. And then obviously Francis Coppola directing that was just, you want to talk about your first time on a cruise ship. You know what I'm saying? That was something else, man. That was something else. What a ride. So after I did that film, everybody wanted to be in that movie, who was my age as an actor, and getting that job. I don't know if it was necessarily because of my talent or the fact that I definitely look like I could be Jeff Bridges' son. I think that's what kind of pushed it over the edge. They're like, he's an okay actor, but damn, he looks like Jeff Bridges. So
I saw that in the theater with my parents. I owned it on VHS and on DVD. It was like a big favorite of mine.
Oh, it's such a great film, such a feel-good movie. They need to make more of those, but they don't ever want to show the underdog and show the corruption, But it's not that they don't ever, but
Sure, it's rare. It's one of those ones they let slip through the cracks.
Yeah. So when I got done with that, my name was pretty good in Hollywood, and it wasn't too long after that I got a TV special called What's Alan Watching, that was directed by a guy named Tommy Schlamme, and a bunch of the writers from the original Saturday Night Live were the writer-producers on it. It was Eddie Murphy Productions and CBS, so I worked with Eddie Murphy. Here was my experience with Eddie Murphy. I'm so excited to meet him because he's my favorite comedian ever. And I'm on set, and one of his right-hand men. I'll leave his name out of it because he didn't hate Whitey at the time. You know, he was cool with Whitey. And so I got to get up to Eddie. I'm just so stoked, man. And I'm like, he's like, hey, Eddie, this is Corin Nemec. You know, he's playing Alan. And I was the lead in the show, What's Alan Watching? Mm-hmm. And Eddie Murphy was actually in it as well. And he turned around and he just looked me up and down like that, and then turned back around and went back to his conversation. Just let me stand there with my hand out. And I was just like, I still think you're funny, but
yeah, they tell you never to meet your idols. That's too bad. All right. Crypto Beatles, my buddy Robert says, appreciate you. Troubling times for sure. Lockdown for something that makes no sense from even inflated numbers. Giving up rights we can now lose at any time going forward. Trusting a plan that's not clear. Praying for all to be revealed soon. God bless all. Where we go one, we go all. I think that a lot of people can probably relate to what Robert's saying there. Unfortunately, you know, I mean, that's, in my mind, this is, part of the, just what comes with having faith. I mean, you've got to have a certain amount of faith going forward in whatever it is that you're involved in.
I trust the maximum amount of faith.
Yeah,
maximum. Absolute maximum.
Well, real quick, and just a complete sideways topic just to bring up real quick, on that same kind of topic about getting through all these things. I just got word from somebody who is on disability, because I know a lot of people waiting on the stimulus check aren't getting it because they're on some type of disability.
Well, I haven't gotten mine.
Right. Well, they checked the IRS website and they apparently have just been told there's no information to give you. Well, they've set the date for my friend to get their stimulus check. So that's, for them, it's April 30th. I don't know if that's going to be just some like massive dump of money to people, because I know a lot of people with disability haven't gotten it yet. So go check the IRS.
Tragic.
Right, yeah, it's terrible, but yeah, it's gonna come at least for my friend on the 30th.
I know that my daughter's unemployment, she didn't make enough money to get regular unemployment, so she's been without a job for the last month. And our state had some special program in which tomorrow she's going to be able to start collecting. So, thank goodness she can start paying her bills again.
I ran into the same exact problem myself because, first, because of the way that you fill out the unemployment. I'm a gig worker, so it only allowed me one space to put in one employer and the amount of time I worked for the one employer, which was like 2 weeks. That was like,
Yeah.
But so then they declined me. Then I had to fill it out a different way, and I filled it out with the other employers, but then it wasn't enough money. And I was like, no, you're not looking at it right. And so I filled it out a third time, and then they're like, oh, well, it's not enough consecutive days work in Texas.
Oh.
And so I was like, well, 3's a charm, man. I give up. What else am I going to do here?
Right. Hey, we got over 4,100 people here hanging out with us. Thanks, guys, for chilling with us on Comfy Sunday. 1.3 thousand likes. Make that thumb blue.
Yes, please. And thank you to anybody who has taken the time to donate to Methods as well. The PayPal is in the description below. I know the mods have been sending it out. Jeffrey West says the Q team is probably far and wide, most definitely. Rain, thank you for that. Chris Hawkins says, still at work. I wanted to be in the chat with the guest Corin. I still love to watch Stargate SG-1 and my personal favorite, Mansquito. I love B movies. Ha ha ha. Love you. Much love, Corin. And then Rain says, oops, the $2 was my first super chat ever. I want to take this opportunity to tell you, Methods, Ardoc, Space Shot, mods, and the chat fam that I love you all, and I'm blessed to have you all and to spend my time with. Well, thank you very much, Rain. I'm glad you're here with us, too.
Hey,
Tracy S.
mutual.
Yeah, Tracy S. says, check your email showing the steeple from 3 sides. Okay, sweet. Redeemed Patriot, 4Q. Who do you want to ask the Q, since timing is everything? I mean, I'll be happy to say I think Chanel Rion is perfect. If I ever get an opportunity, that's the first thing I would ask the president. But Methods, who would your bet be with?
You stole my answer.
We have the same answer.
She would be absolutely perfect. I mean, to ask that, because it would set up OAN. It would give the right amount of limelight on her and what the good work she's doing. And then on top of that, it would kind of tie things back to Ukraine, because she covered that very well.
She sure did. Yeah. Let's see. Brent Lee said, was there any subliminal projects in any of your movies, Corin? Anything that you knew about or that you maybe picked up on?
I'd say one of the only interesting things I picked up on was, and it had nothing to do with the content of the movie really per se. I've had a couple of some very interesting experience. I did a couple of movies with a guy who was a film producer in the Philippines, who was an ex CIA agent.
Really?
And another, his buddy, his partner, was a CIA analyst and also wrote books on the tarot. And I did 2 movies with these guys. I'm getting chills thinking about those dudes. Ooh. And that was very interesting. I had some really interesting conversations with the dude on the tarot side of things, and about the metaphysics and all of that, because there's obviously, when you're talking about the MK Ultra programs and Project Mockingbird, all of that ties back into magic and hypnosis and the mind control is thousands of years old. Let's not get it twisted. So anyway, that those guys were interesting, but on Operation Dumbo Drop, I had brought a bunch of my books with me, because I was going to be over in Thailand for like 5.5 months, something like that, and so I had one of my books, and at the time when I got it, it's called the Urantia.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah,
URANTIA, and at the time you weren't able to get the book except directly from the foundation, and I had to write a letter of request why I wanted it, and a promise not to proselytize it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I would anyway, if anybody's ever read that crazy shit.
Sure.
But so I'm on set reading this thing, and one of the executive producers comes up, a lady, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I was in the Urantia Foundation in the '60s and stuff," and I was like, "Ah!" You know what I mean? I was like, "What?"
It's all there's all kinds of crazy stuff all over Hollywood. I mean, it's. Do you think that people in Hollywood are exposed to things because these various groups are trying to recruit, or is it that people are looking for answers more?
Well, I'll say this about that. Well, let's take the Urantia Foundation, for instance. If you're looking at it as a psyop, supposedly, I did quite a bit of research into it, and supposedly the book was channeled by H.G. Wells in a channeling session. And this book, I mean, it comes with that and the concordance. I mean, it's bigger than the Bible, this thing. It's just a tome of tomes, man. If you drop it on your toe, bro, it is not going to be pleasant. I don't care if you have steel toe boots on. But it's as big as the dictionary. But if you get into it, I truly believe it's exactly where they got the concept for Star Wars from. There's no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind that because especially when I met this lady, and I started thinking back, and I started thinking about George Lucas, and I'm thinking about, oh, she's a big time executive producer. I'm thinking about Urantia Foundation in the '60s and this, and who might have been involved in it, and the weirdness, and and I started and I'm thinking of Star Wars. I'm like, it's the story. It's exactly the story with different characters and different names that they're telling in the Urantia, which is all about all these different universal powers that are in kind of in flux all around the galaxy and all this crazy stuff. It has its own version of the creation of man, which gets kind of not David Icke-ish at all, but kind of
I mean, it definitely puts a sci-fi spin on it.
It does. Well, remember I told you I'd gone to that channeling session with Bashar. It's more along Bashar lines than anything else, so that right there, I think that is something to really look into if you're interested in just going down a rabbit hole, is doing a mild comparison between the Star Wars world that they created and the world that's insinuated in Urantia. But I see that as being another psyop myself, is this idea of projecting some kind of savior or danger that's exterior even to the planet. Mm-hmm. that is some science fiction power that I get really, really wary of marrying myself to too many of those radical theories, because that's a very, very, very powerful psyop to get people to project something that it just isn't there and then believe in it and live, and you're actually basing your everyday decisions in life on this idea that there's zero real evidence of in my life. Like I say this, I'm not going to say that aliens exist or don't exist. I just haven't met one yet.
Sure. I mean, you know
what I'm saying?
It immediately makes me think of Werner von Braun. You know, he said that at first it was the Cold War, then it was going to be the War on Terror, then he said it was going to be, you know, a threat from outer space. So, you know, if you can put people's hopes and fears in the idea that something like that's going to happen, then if you come to them and say, hey, we have the protection for this supposed interstellar threat that's going to come at you, you know, then you need to follow us. Just need to say thank you to Redeemed Patriot. Brent Lee said, oh yeah, that was the subliminal thing. Inmets said, 2 if by sea there is 2 lights. Red Pills Warhawk says, Robert is pretty cool, man. He sent me his book and it's a good read. I'm still waiting on getting my package from Robert. So anybody else who got their stuff, please make sure to tell us in the chat, because I know a couple of my my viewers were winners when I did the interview with him on his program. Gaffer Anon says, looking forward to the new Jim Caviezel film coming out called Sound of Freedom. Deals with child trafficking. Trailer available online. I'll have to check it out.
I watched that trailer right before the show, man. It's gonna be good. Because it goes right down the road of the stuff that we're talking about. And, you know, just like, because he did the Passion of the Christ, it's got that kind of like feel like you're going to sit and watch and keep your mouth shut.
Okay.
And not say a word, just watch. Yeah, I watched the trailer earlier. It's going to be good.
I'll check it out. And then one more. Sheila Garrett says, great interview, guys. Blessings to all. Thank you, everybody, for those. So, Corin, you know.
Oh, wait, real quick, we got to touch on that one super chat that we talked about much earlier. The guy had asked being written about why the character didn't continue.
That's on right. Yes, please.
All that. So
yeah, thanks, Corin.
Keep me on track.
Well, this happens a lot at the conventions too. You get, you know, you got to track with people's questions and stuff. But you know, going on to that show was really successful, but I kind of loopholed my way in. I was actually at MGM auditioning for something totally different. The casting people for the show happened by me, and I had known them, you know, from previous jobs, and we had a chat, and they were talking about Stargate, and they had just gotten this role in for a new character on the show, new series regular, and they ended up just sending my they said, they whispered amongst each other, and I heard one of them say, he looks a lot like Heath Ledger. If anybody didn't hear me, one of them said he looks a lot like a Heath Ledger, and so then when they were whispering, this is hopefully not look a lot like him now, but then I know.
Too soon.
No, man, keep going, bud.
So they ended up sending my like demo reel and stuff like that up to Vancouver, and I got approved, and I got on the show, and it was right when the show was going over to Sci-Fi Channel. So, you know, it was sort of outside the loop of a lot of the mainstream networks and studios and stuff like that I've been kind of squeezed out of, you know, and I'm not saying that I was forced out of the show for some, you know, nefarious backroom political reasons. I have no idea. You know, all I know is that the other actor, Michael Shanks, he had wanted to leave the show to go on and do, you know, bigger and better things. And as all actors know, you never leave a series. And I think that the discussion was had between the network and him and his representatives about him coming back on the show, and they started writing him back into the show as a recurring character, and then at some point after the first season, which was a huge success, they made a decision to transfer the characters back over for whatever reason. I've never gotten a straight answer from any of the guys that I know on the producing side of it, and I've asked, believe me. But it was a peculiarity, and it was a very distressing moment, because I had spent so much time in the shadows throughout the 90s and all of that, you know, just really hustling to keep relevant, that it was such an incredible opportunity my character was supposed to spin off onto Stargate Atlantis as the lead in that as well. And all of that.
Hey man, spoiler alert. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just joking. Go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, you know, it was a decision made based on keeping the original cast together, which makes sense to me creatively. Of course, I wasn't happy about it, but I wasn't throwing fits or anything like that. I've not, I've always kept my career extremely professional. Except for the one time I yelled at the assistant director on Parker Lewis because he kept giving the extras too hard of a time, and I was over it.
So
and I gave him the people are people speech.
Parker Lewis Can't Lose is definitely a show that I watched when I was a kid. I really enjoyed it. What was the situation like on that set? I mean, it was frenetic. It was comedic. I mean, was it a good time, or was that a lot to deal with at your age?
Best time ever. Best time ever. I think for me, which was really great. I was really in my life, my real life outside of acting. I was, early on, I was really into the breakdancing scene. I was really into graffiti art from a very young age, and I was a major part of the graffiti art movement in the '80s in Los Angeles, and that was, that culture, the street culture of all of that was my world, and acting was my job, and I didn't really entertain the side of the acting world that I looked at as being absolutely ridiculous, because I kept getting myself caught up in these photo shoots for these teen magazines when I was a teenager, and they would do my hair the way they wanted it done. They'd put on the shirts that they wanted me to wear. They'd put on the pants that somebody sent over that were free. They put on the shoes that were sponsored for the photo shoot, and and just dress me up like I'm a freaking play doll, and I would do it because I was young. I was 13, 14, and then I started seeing the pictures in the magazines. Actually, I didn't start seeing them. My buddies would bring them to the graffiti yard and show them to me.
Give you a hard time.
And I'd be like, yeah, but, So I really started fighting back at a young age against all of that. And I was saying earlier to Methods, when I started doing a lot of the talk shows, they would do all these pre-show interviews. So they get you on the phone, they run you through what the interview is going to be about. They ask you a bunch of questions. They find all the funniest beats and moments. They basically choreograph and direct the interview before it happens.
Sure, no surprises.
And they kept wanting, every single time I would do one of these, they always wanted me to come up with like a funny anecdote or something quirky or weird that might have happened on set, or a relationship thing that might have happened with one of the other actors, or some crap.
Some contrived,
and if I didn't, and I remember the one interview I had for the Arsenio Hall show, they asked me that very question. I didn't end up on the show, by the way. They asked me that very question, and I said, nothing happened that was funny on the set. How about that?
So, I mean, were you able, you said that we talked about this before. I mean, your experience, off air, I mean, you were, running with a big group of kids, kind of like the, late 80s, early 90s version of the Brat Pack, like your own generation, running around doing graffiti and stuff. I mean, were you able to avoid all of the negative things that we think about when we think about Hollywood? I mean, there's a lot of horror stories that come out, and I think about some other people from your generation, maybe that have come out in the last couple of years and said, hey, I was, victimized, or there was terrible things that happened. I mean, were you able to avoid that stuff, or can you talk about that as part of it?
That's a loaded question, my friend.
Corin, go down the path of the gang that we talked about.
Yeah, that's what I'm shooting at.
Yeah, I can see where he's going. No, you've got to talk about that tonight.
Well,
man.
that really it really came up because of something that, and this is a topic that I am so apprehensive about getting into because of the whole Corey Feldman thing and all of that, and because it's such an explosive subject, and it's I mean, but in all brutal honesty, with nothing to hide, I had gotten involved at a young age when I was 15. Well, I'd known some of these guys earlier that because I was into breakdancing and all of that, and there was this breakdancing crew from they stretched between South Central and Hollywood, and some people in North Hollywood, and they were called Gumbies, the Gumbies, and that was their breakdancing group name back in the early 80s.
Just
Like
real
80,
quick,
82, 80, 83, 84, something like that. Yes.
Is that a coincidence that that was also Eddie Murphy's big character on Saturday Night Live when he was on there?
Well, the reason why they called themselves Gumbies because of the way that they would bend and move and twist and turn and all of that when they're doing their breakdancing thing.
Okay.
But breakdancing, became taboo around 1985. If you were still on a piece of cardboard on the street corner doing backspins, people were like, yo, homie, you snap out of it, dude. But that said, the dancing scene was still really big. It had just moved into the hip hop nightclubs and all of that, But these guys back in the mid 80s, they had gone from being a breakdancing crew. They were all predominantly black. In fact, all of them were at that time. The guys I had known, Justin Warfield, who is the lead singer of a band called She Wants Revenge.
Oh yeah, I know him.
Yeah. Me and him were best buddies growing up. We were in the same graffiti crew together, called The Chosen Few, TCF, along with another buddy of mine named Kevin Hicks, who's a rap artist. And I had known Kevin from my early days in graffiti art around 1985, because he was in a graffiti crew called Creators of Art in the San Fernando Valley, and they were a big time crew, and I was kind of jocking him. And he tagged Jester at the time, Jester. Well, anyway, Kevin was in Gumbies as a dad, but the crew itself morphed into what I would call more like, it wasn't a gang yet, but it had expanded into something far more. Nobody was breakdancing anymore. Dudes were, hustling and selling dope and, doing all kinds of other shenanigans. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And, but I was best friends with Justin Warfield. And also at the time, I was best friends with Balthazar Getty, and David Arquette. And David Arquette is a very well-known graffiti artist from back in the day. He tagged someone from a crew called KGB and was very, very well known in the 80s under his graffiti moniker. So I got to know these guys, and I had already kind of, because of every single graffiti crew in LA had gang affiliations. That's just how it went.
Sure.
And I was in a number of graffiti crews at the time. And the other graffiti crews that I had been in and out of were mostly associated with a predominantly Hispanic gang called North Hollywood Boys in North Hollywood, California, where I went to school. And I grew up with a bunch of those guys out in North Hollywood. And they wanted to like jump me into their gang at one point when I was like 13, 14 years old. And I went to one of their gang meetings, and I saw them jump this dude in, and they like busted a bottle over his head. Ooh. And I was like, I'm cool, man. I'll just keep drawing block letters for you guys in math class. How about that? Because they love the way, because I was a really good graffiti artist. I still do graffiti art, but I could also do gang letters really good. I could do block letter styles and Old English, and so they'd have me draw their shit in class for them, and they'd like take it and be like, "Oh yeah, man," So, so I didn't end up getting into North Hollywood Boys.
That's good. That's good.
But these guys, they were. I was far more apprehensive of this group of dudes than I was of these guys from the Hollywood Boys, but it's probably because I kind of grew up with them. They were dangerous. They were some dangerous dudes, you know what I mean? And for some reason at that time, because I didn't grow up with a dad around, and I was seeking manliness and manhood and what that meant to me. And at the time, when you're talking about programming and propaganda, it was the height of the LA gang wars. Being in a gang was popularized in music and in art and in movies and all this stuff. And, so that popularization of it really just helped to, I think, really helped to make the whole entire gang scene explode, But so I wasn't going to get into the gang because I wasn't going to get jumped into anything after I saw that dude get beat down. And then when I met these guys from Gumby's, I mean, you know, these dudes are predominantly from South Central, some from, you know, from Hollywood, and they were the real thing. You know what I mean? I mean, they grew up really, you know, they were the real deal.
Do you think, were they just interested in, you know, I mean, you were part of the crew without being jumped in because you were such a good artist, but I mean, do you think there was also a part of it that they were like, hey, this is, you know, somebody that we see on screen, we're also hanging out with him, that's pretty sweet?
No, not at all.
No?
Because see, I had grown up also with Kevin Hicks and with Justin Warfield and Kevin Hicks, and both of them had known these guys for years and years and years, and really, I kept my acting career. You know, I never even talked about it. I never promoted it. I never brought it up. I mean, there was a lot. You'd be surprised. There was a lot of people in my school earlier on that didn't even know I was an actor, you know, at first, until things really started to blow up for me, you know. So yeah, when I was 15, you know, these guys basically they were starting their, you know, kind of their neighborhood, and wanted to start, you know, branding their neighborhood with the gang logo, which was G12. They chose in the Hispanic gangs, the 13 represents mota, marijuana, and the reason why they would do that was they would write their street name, like let's say Clanton or Clanton Street. They called it, or Clinton Street, but they called it Clanton, like a clan, like a group.
Sure.
So Clinton 13, when they would write 13, you know, C13, that meant that was their weed selling neighborhood. So if you're driving around looking for weed and you look over and you see V13, Venice 13, you see C13, you see these different 13s, you go, oh, that's the neighborhood. And you drive down there and someone runs out with a tinfoil bag and you know, buy a dime sack of fucking dirt weed. You know?
Sure.
So, and most of the Hollywood Hispanic gangs started out as local, football teams, community football teams. It's a true story. That's a whole different story though. So anyway, I got into this neighborhood because, you know, me and my buddy Justin, we went out and we bombed the name out all over, you know, the area that we were kind of marking as our own, this certain kind of stretch of Hollywood, and this area in South Central near Broadway and 42nd, which we couldn't really lay claim to because Broadway gangster Crips owned that neighborhood, but we hung out down there all the time with them, and so you know, we go and we do that, and we do what was asked of us, and it just goes gangbusters, man. Everybody's super stoked. Suddenly they're getting a flood of new recruits. But you know, but how this ties into the whole you know, Corey Feldman thing. I mean, this story is just gonna, I can't even believe I'm telling you.
Yeah, I know, Corey. I can literally see you dancing around, not even really wanting to talk about it. But yeah, man, it's definitely a fascinating story. It's going to be accepted by everybody here. So.
Yeah, for sure. There'll be some backlash out there. So anyway, there was this, and this goes into Alfie Soda Pop Club because one of the guys in the gang. Well, Kevin Hicks and myself and my buddy Eager. Well, I'm sorry, I shouldn't call him by his gang name, but but anyway. So you had his father was a famous comedian. His name's Shane Mooney, and his father's Paul Mooney, and he was one of the guys that was one of the original dudes in this from the Hollywood sect that had gotten into this breakdancing crew back in 83 or whatever it was, you know, and 82, 83 or some shit. So they were all kind of going to, because we were still underage, and there was this thing called Alfie's Soda Pop Club, which was an underage nightclub for kids in the industry. And that's and so, you know, we would posse up and go there like 15 years old or whatever, you know, all gangstered out, you know, with all these actors, you know, like acting all, yeah, man, you know what I mean? Like hilarious shit, dude, hilarious, you know, the posturing. But so the guy who threw this particular event named Alfie Hoffman, which wasn't his real name. His real name was a Hispanic. I don't recall what it is right offhand, but he actually was the quote unquote son of a well-known executive in Hollywood, producer or casting or something, I can't remember. But he was apparently a street hustler in the early 80s himself, when he was a young teenager, and was, I don't know if you want to call it adopted by this fellow, but that would be the overall outcome of it. Was he took on his name and basically operated essentially as his son. And
but
and
I mean, Alfie Hoffman was a producer in Hollywood, and when you're saying adopted, I mean he was legally adopted by someone else, but essentially was acting.
He was never legally adopted. You might be talking about a different Alfie Hoffman. I don't want to get this misconstrued. The Alfie Hoffman I am talking about never produced a thing except for bad events.
He was a procurer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he had a house up in the Hollywood Hills, and he would have after parties there, and that's where you kind of like could, separate the wheat from the chaff, because at Alfie Soda Pop Club, at the events themselves, a lot of the parents would hang around for the night, and the kids would hang out and dance and do their thing. It was kind of like going to a skating rink without the skating rink.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And but he would have these parties, and anybody who didn't have much parental supervision would be able to go to these parties. And so they were full. It was like going to a junior high party at a friend's house.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was like. I mean, the place would be jam-packed, liquor everywhere, drugs, whatever. And I really didn't think a whole lot of it. I certainly was at that time, I was certainly aware, from my own point of view, that I protect myself. But
sure.
I've always been that way.
Well, I mean, your experience, running around on the streets, I would imagine that would give you some level of awareness, some level of, self-preservation. But
well, let me put it this way. There was a time in Hollywood where nobody really wanted to mess with me.
Okay. All right.
Well, let me ask the question, the writing on the wall, Corin. Can you hear me, buddy?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah,
go for it.
Let me ask you, Corin. Do you feel like that said soda pop shop by Alfie's was a place that would be scouted if someone
That's exactly
was looking?
What, like I said, it was separating the wheat from the chaff. It was figuring out which kids were supervised, which kids weren't, which kids were already drinking, which kids weren't, which kids were all of that stuff could be easily weeded out in that kind of a situation. So I didn't really, I always told, I had already heard the rumors about Alfie, and was very wary of him, but we go and party, and I didn't see anything myself or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not going to just go ahead and believe, what the whisperings are. But there was one night when, a buddy of ours, so I was hanging out with all these guys from the gang, and I was taking them around with me to a bunch of Hollywood parties, and some of them were already somewhat associated within Hollywood due to other relationships, and me and Balthazar Getty were best friends, and he ended up getting into the gang with me as well, and I ended up getting Seth Binzer, who's the lead singer from Crazy Town. He was in the gang with me as well. It's just a bizarre group. Even Brian Green wanted to be in the gang at one point, but that didn't happen.
Everybody just got butter. Yeah, everybody just got butterflies stuck in their head.
Well, it was just, these dudes were no joke, and it sounds corny, but these guys were the real deal. And and I was very close friends with them, and we were all very, very tight, and we were friends. And it was a deeper relationship, with these guys than what it might have looked at face value. And these dudes had my back, for sure. It regards, what that world is all about. They came to my rescue on many occasions. You know what I'm saying? When they didn't have to.
Now, did you guys know Corey Feldman at this time? I mean, were you guys acquainted?
No, I knew all of those guys. Yeah. That just wasn't my scene.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
so what ends up happening is that one of our I keep wanting to use, the slang term, one of our homies. I
Sure.
just don't want to sound corny. You know what I mean? But anyway, one of the members from the gang who was a younger member, probably 13 or so, he had somehow gotten left at Alfie's house after a party somehow, and most likely drugged or whatever. And he woke up out of being drugged to finding Alfie performing a sexual act on him.
Mm.
And he, of course, came and told what I will call just the neighborhood. He came and explained what happened. And the fact that Alfie Hoffman is alive right now, we're even talking about this. I hate to say that. I hate to say that was my fault.
Why do you think it's your fault?
Because I'm the one who said not to kill him.
Okay.
So they went to his house, and they, handled some business with him, and in no uncertain terms, got rid of him, and ended up taking over his house for 3 months.
Wow.
And they ended up having to have so because there's so much stuff going on behind the scenes with him that was illegal, no one was calling the cops.
Okay, so they took
the house.
Yeah.
They just let them have the house, and it wasn't until lawyers started showing up. They went through lawyers, not the police,
right,
to get them out of the house.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised they didn't burn the house down before they left. But when they did, there wasn't much of a house left to go back to.
Wow.
And his whole entire deal was closed down after that. His life was pretty much ruined. The last time I saw him after that, I was walking down the street in probably 2007 or 8, and he looked homeless. I saw him walking right through Hollywood on La Brea Boulevard, and I wanted to run up and punch him in the fucking face. But I just was just like, dude, that's.
Well, it sounds like a fate worse than death, though, right? Like you have to walk the earth knowing what happened, having everything you tried to build up stolen.
Look, I know that Alfie. The reason why I felt any compassion at all is because I know that Alfie had been groomed himself, and was being used and manipulated by a very evil and corrupt system that's in there. But I will say this, man, it's just everybody paints Hollywood dark, and yes, there's a dark scene there for sure, and it's a powerful dark one, but it's the same dark scene that's in corporate America, the same dark scene that's in political America.
Right.
It's the same dark scene anywhere. The majority of people in the film business, whether they be actors, writers, producers, directors, stagehands, whatever, are just like anybody else, so to put a full umbrella, of Satanism over Hollywood really isn't fair, because I think it needs to be looked at in the same light as you would look at corporate America or anything else.
Of course.
Yes, there's definitely an element that's super corrupt and dark and all of that that exists in there, but it exists everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it's some special snowflake.
Sure.
It's just Hollywood,
Right.
Yeah.
It's a corrupt system, a corrupted system with the dark reference that you're making that's pulling the strings.
Well, and of course within the context of that, of course you have, a core group that's running a narrative, that's creating entertainment to deliver a narrative which has, subjective kind of content in there that in order to design a way of thinking and a way and an outlook on life, that's always it's there. It's been there probably since the inception of Hollywood, and then at the same time, there's plenty of people who are just trying to make great, entertainment. You know what I'm saying? Want to make great entertainment, and that's what I'm trying to do as well. Again, you can imagine that that there was a reverberative effect of that incident that occurred for me personally without me knowing it, because everybody knew of my involvement with these guys. And if I'm not saying that that Alfie's stepfather wasn't a good guy or a bad guy. I don't know. I know some rumors, but I won't speculate on rumors, nor will I throw names out there that are only attached to rumors. It's not fair. Plus, some of the names that are associated with the rumors, I literally wouldn't say because I care for my life too much. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
It's crazy enough even talking about this. Because like I had mentioned when we talked before, that went on because these guys, one of them ended up dating Victoria Sellers, who was best friends with Heidi Fleiss, and they were living up in the Heidi Fleiss at Victoria's mansion, the Heidi Fleiss mansion, and they were all involved in that. And they started robbing the Johns' houses when the Johns were out of town, and that turned into a whole other ordeal. And I found out years later, I knew that they were hanging out with Heidi Fleiss and all of them, but at that point, when I got Parker Lewis, I stopped doing any gang shit. I hung out with them and we palled around. They come up to my house, we chill, we go have drinks. There were some little scuffles and some little bullshit that happened here and there throughout those years. But this is what great guys, not great guys they were. That this is, that's questionable in terms of behavior and whatnot. But that said, there is a code on the streets between gangs. You have a contractual agreement. If I get caught slipping, you can beat me up. If you get caught slipping, we can beat you up. So there is a contractual agreement there on a street level. You just don't engage in bringing in innocent people or anything like that. But anyway, when they were hanging out, I had gone over to the Heidi Fleiss house a couple of times just because I needed to see it for myself, like what was going on up there, man. Yeah. And it was a fucking scene, bro. I mean, what a scene.
Corin, dude. I'm sorry, buddy, if you can just refrain from using the F word.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I said Phuket, the place in Thailand.
Right, okay. Right.
I was referring to Thailand. Yes, I will do that. I apologize.
You're good. You're good.
But I had, I knew something was up. But from what I understand, the scam to be was that that my guys were providing certain illicit drugs or whatever with the ladies of the night, who would then go to the Johns and they would get their little cut or whatever. But a lot of these ladies of the night started to build up such tight relationships with their Johns that they were given the security codes and stuff like that to these houses in Beverly Hills and Bel Air and whatnot. And so these guys from Gumby's got them to, give them the codes and whatnot. And they would go up, they'd find out because these girls would literally know their schedules. They'd call me, hey, you want to get together this weekend? Oh, no, I'm going to be out of town. Oh, okay, next weekend. Then, you know what I'm saying? As easy as that, basically. So then they would go with a faux moving van and some blue outfits or whatever, and security code, go into the house and then move out everything that they wanted to. And they did this a number of times. And I think that that's what brought down the whole Heidi Fleiss thing. No one gave a crap about what Heidi Fleiss was doing in terms of procurement of ladies. And she only dealt in women, mostly well over 18. I never met one of them that was under 21. I never saw her dealing in anything outside of anything like that. Not that says anything that's any better than anything else, but most of the girls that worked for her were, strippers or models or other things. And none of them that I ever saw were ever under, I wouldn't have been around that anyway, if that were the case. And neither would have my homies, that's for sure. Well,
I mean, I just want to touch on that because, I find that interesting. I'm sure everyone remembers the Heidi Fleiss, the Hollywood Madam, and I remember thinking at the time that is strange that they would be going after her, considering her line of work and where it was located. Just to be frank, in an industry like that, or even, I guess, anytime you have powerful people, that's kind of a normalized thing. Like, people are looking to spend their money that way. And I mean, that's how, they call it the oldest profession in the world, because these people that participate in it, it's been taking place for a long time. People with money will make money that way. They will use it as an opportunity to traffic. And I thought it was strange. Why would they go after Heidi Fleiss? And you're saying that they went after her because of your buddies.
Well, it was this is my understanding of it. You understand? Because there was only limited reporting. There was reportings about the robberies, but there was nothing. There was no reports about anything else after that. But you can go back and find some of these reports from the that time period, early '90s or whatever. It was written up. A couple of the incidents were written up in the LA Times and whatnot. Now, I don't know how many of these. I don't know if they just did 1 or 2. I don't know if they did 3 or 4. I don't know if they did a dozen. I don't know. I wasn't a part of that, and really didn't know all. I still don't know all the ins and outs to it, because even my buddies won't tell me the full deal, because they have deals that they made on the back end of it all, and none of them really saw any time for it. Limited time, because there was some other things that went on where they turned over evidence on some more serious crimes that allowed them to get off of these robberies or whatnot. So the reason why, from what my take on it is that they went for Heidi Fleiss to get these guys and to get them out of the picture without ever having to publicize the fact that the people whose houses were robbed were getting hookers from Heidi Fleiss. You understand? Mm-hmm. Because that's a tie-in that nobody wanted.
Right.
Well, real quick before we move.
Yeah. Let me finish that up, because this is where I come. This is the full circle part. So it was like 2008 or something like that. And this is when it really dawned on me, the whole thing. And I was coming out of an audition in Burbank, and this guy, and this short, just bulldog of a guy in a suit. I mean, he was just popping the seams out of this suit, just came scruffling up to me, and he's like, Mr. Nemec. And I was like, yeesh. And I thought it was like, maybe the security from the place. What did I do? And he's like, hey, he goes, hey, you don't know me. And I can't remember the fellow's name. I think I still have the card that he gave me. He was in part of the LAPD gang task force that was assigned to Gummies and the Heidi Fleiss thing. Mm-hmm. And he was assigned to follow me to see if I was a part of Heidi Fleiss's shenanigans.
Right.
So he told me that they used to follow me to work and to my house and stuff like that while I was filming Parker Lewis.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. Well, it's a good thing. Good thing you weren't actually part of it. Let me just do the rest of these super chats real quick, and then we're going to open up the phones. And if you guys have any specific questions for Corin about, his experiences or, anything taking place in Hollywood, then we can do that. Jerome, I'm sorry. Let me see. Where was it? Brent Lee, Gaffernon, thank you for that Jim Caviezel movie. Brent Lee, I would also like to know if anyone has learned about Project One Shot with our Courage food shortage threat. I've never heard of Project One Shot. Sheila Garrett, great interview, blessings to all, thank you. Adam14041 how does your rancha match with morals and dogma? I looked something up about that. It doesn't, yeah. Let's see, Anthony Butters, thank you for that.
But morals and dogmas is a terribly plagiarized half-wit piece of work.
Inmet says, this is going to be expensive if you don't read and understand my chat. Q said, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. There are 2 lights in the church window. I'm asking if we're talking about the, I only see the 1 light. Oh, no. This is the outside of the same photograph, which Q posted the other day, showing the 2 lamps inside. So I believe that he just wanted us to, put it together so that we can see. And maybe it actually does mean that 2 if by sea, something is going to be happening. Watch the water. That could be it. Thank you for that, Inmets. And Jerome Morsi, thank you. Lionheart joined as a member. Alan061, his life sounds like he should make a movie about it. That's exactly the first thing I said when we talked the other day. Filled with Hope, totally agree that darkness exists in corporate America as well. Yes, that was an excellent point. I mean, whether it is, just the regular corporate world, the banking world, local government, state government, federal government, administrative, it doesn't matter. Anytime power is able to be collected, it's going to draw psychopaths in. They're going to seek that out, and they're going to try to use it to their own advantage so that they can gain that power for themselves. Casey Anon says that's because it's the same global satanic cabal. Its tentacles make it seem like separate circles of evil, but it's all the same malignant tumor. And that's the truth, too. I mean, these people all interact with each other, and it is all the same evil. And Jay Charles says, I loved Parker Lewis Can't Lose. When I watch Goldberg's and Schooled, it reminds me of Parker Lewis, loving the red pills. All right, sweet. So I'm going to go ahead and throw up the phone number and the meeting ID on the screen. Go ahead,
While
Methods.
you're doing that, we've got over 4,000 people hanging out with us. Click that like button for us.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. No, we got the best chat. To me personally, I'll say it selfishly.
We got a small army out there.
Right? No, and if you ever get a chance to read the chats that happen in here, they just have some of the greatest conversations that I see. Best mods on YouTube. Love all of you. Thank you guys for hanging out.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. I definitely appreciate all the hard work that the mods put in, and I appreciate everybody keeping the chat civil because, you know, I mean, like, you go a lot of different places on YouTube, and people can be nasty. I would really appreciate it that people are not like that here on this channel. So, Corin, was that the craziest experience you ever had in Hollywood, or was there anything that outdoes, you know, your tangential connection to the Heidi Fleiss scandal and, you know, to the unfortunate event that was Alfie Soda Pop Club?
So many. There's my trip to Israel in the early 90s when I met a gentleman named Benny the Fisherman there, who is, I don't know if I should have just said his name. But me and him became good buddies, and he took me to a place in Tel Aviv that was dubious, to say the least. Not in the. I went with a date, and it was a dinner, and it was a kind of a steakhouse type of place. But there was something else going on there. But the overall story, it's one of the craziest stories ever. I don't even know if we have time to tell it on this one.
Honestly, give us the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, and then we can go into it in depth at another time.
Oh man, well, I met Benny in Haifa, and me and him got along really well. We seemed to be talking about some similar subjects and whatnot. And he said, let's get together in Tel Aviv. When you're there a week or so from now. I was there for almost a month, I guess, all over the country. And so I'm like, yeah, cool. So like 3-4 days pass by. I'm in Tel Aviv, and my show is the #1 show in Israel at the time, man. And it was nuts going out there. It was nuts walking around out there. So I met this girl at a cafe across the street from the hotel, and Benny had given me his business card with an address that I was supposed to meet him at on Friday night at 6 p.m. And so I tell her I got to go to this dinner. If she wants to go with me, great. She's like, yeah, sure, I'll go with you. I was like, awesome. So she comes over and meets me at the hotel, and we're hanging out, and I show her the card where we're going, and she's like, that's a residential area. There's no restaurants there or anything. I'm like, well, that's where we're going, So right then my phone rings. Did I go off air?
No, you're still here.
Oh, okay, it popped up on me for a second. Right then, my phone rings in the hotel, and I answer it, and he's like, "Corin, it's Benny," and I'm like, "Oh, hey, Benny." I was like, "I didn't know. How did he have my number? How did he have my room? He's like, "Are you coming tonight?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Benny, yeah, I'm coming." He goes, "Do you need a ride?" I'm like, "No, I got a ride. I'm good." He goes, "Do you need a date?" And I was like, no, good on that too, I guess, So we go get in the taxi cab, and I hand the taxi cab driver the card, and he looks at it and he goes, "You go here." And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "This where you go?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, and I was just like, the hell is this? So we drive home, we pull up to this kind of brownstone style building, and Benny had nothing to do with the ownership of this place or anything else or whatever. This had nothing to do with him. He was just a restaurateur, and an excellent restaurateur at that. Has one of the most fantastic seafood restaurants in all of Israel. So I arrived there, and at the top of the stairs, there's a dude, full black suit, Desert Eagle just practically poking out of the jacket, and at the top of the stairs, there's this giant like bomb-proof glass door with no handles on it. And this is in 1992 to the 93 crossover. I was there for New Year's. And so I show him the business card. I'm there to meet Benny. He buzzes inside. He radios inside, and then the door buzzes, and it opens up, and we go in, and the girl I'm with now is like, she's already like weirded out. She's like, what? She's just a normie. She just is a cafe worker, And so we get inside, and we're in a foyer, and it's closed up, and it's got like a ticket booth looking thing at the end of it with two more doors on each side, and they're just as thick and powerful as the full bomb proof, so and there was no door handles on anything in there either. So I go up to the little window thing, slide the card through, and they're like, oh, they radio in, and door buzzes, go in. Now we walk into what looks like a Chicago steakhouse. I'm serious. It's
That's
like,
crazy.
nice leather, dim lighting. And they had this dude up there, this Israeli dude with a one-man band playing all kinds of like 80s pop tunes and stuff, bro. It was, that was a catastrophe right there. That was the worst part of the night. We get buzzed in and well, this is the thing. So I'm in the foyer. This is the thing. This is why I feel bad about mentioning his name, but I know he has nothing to do with this particular establishment. He just knows the owner. So I'm in the foyer, and I'm looking at her. Look at me, I'm whispering like somebody's listening to me.
Well, yeah, just 4,000 people.
I'm in the foyer, man, and I look up, and along the walls, along the ceiling, along the walls are photos of the owner of the establishment with Bush Senior. Ooh. And Bush Jr. with Billy Boy, with Schwartzy, yeah. with Mr. Balboa, with a whole host of people.
Right.
And that's when, because I was already, like I had said, I got into the sovereignty movement and all that stuff when I was in my late teens, and I was really, really well versed on New World Order type stuff and everything. And I'm from Arkansas, and everybody in Arkansas knows the Clinton family's crooked.
Yeah, I want to know about that one later.
So when I looked up and saw that, I was like, ah! Right. I was like, I'm in the belly of the beast. You know what I'm saying? And that was my inner reaction was exactly that. And so we go inside, and I explained that the way it was laid out and all that, and we go to this big table, and Benny's there and some other people, and the table's full, mostly men, and they're all speaking in Hebrew, so I didn't really understand a whole lot that was going on. The one thing I did understand was that as the conversation was going on and on and on, the girl I was with started going like this in her chair.
They were talking about nothing good?
I don't know what they were talking about, but it was whatever it was casual conversation that her ears weren't used to hearing.
Wow.
Whatever it was, you know what I mean? It was probably just general politics or whatever, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Who knows? I don't know. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and tell the whole story then.
Well, so, we've got our first caller on the line, so go ahead.
This is the important part.
Get to the important part.
Well, so Benny had asked me if I smoked, meaning smoked marijuana when we were in Haifa, and I said yes. So when we were sitting there having dinner and all this stuff, at a certain point, he asked me if I still smoke or whatever. I'm like, yes. So he waves the waitress over, and she goes off into the back, and she comes back with this big envelope and gives it to me. And I put it in my pocket. He says, don't open it till you get to the hotel. I'm like, okay, no sweat, And so I'll quickly wrap up the story. So we finish dinner. We go back to the hotel. The girl I'm with is absolutely just out of body right now, like doesn't even want to talk, doesn't really want to be around me. Get back to the hotel. I pull this fucking envelope out, tear it open. Sorry, I said it again.
It's okay.
I'm so sorry. I dump it out, and it is literally an entire brick of Lebanese hash with a gold stamp on it, from the tribe that from the tribe that made it.
Sure.
I mean, this thing had to be $1,200 street value or something. I don't know what it was, but she just freaked out, and that was it. She left. I broke up some hash and got stoned on the balcony. But
All right. Well, we've got our first caller, my good buddy Robert Beatles. What's up, Robert? How you doing, bud?
What's up, brother? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear.
Awesome, man.
What's going on?
Oh man, just got back from Nevada. Sorry, I've been incognito the past couple shows. Just been working like crazy here, man.
Nice hat.
Thank you, man. Monarch. See, everybody can be the monarch of their own money. It's the first. That's it. Tired of all these people out there trying to control our money. Now you can be the sovereign of your own funds. But I just kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts a little bit about what's going on in the world right now. I mean, there's a lot of people frustrated. We're trying to trust the plan. A lot of people thought, it'd be like Easter or 420, and we all love Q and we all love all the stuff that's going on. But when you look at the numbers of this COVID-19 crap, it's weird, right? Because there's more suicides in the U.S. than what this thing's done.
Yeah.
There's more people that die from the flu than what this thing has done. Yet so many people were just so easy in just giving up their rights. They just gave up their rights. They're all basically confined to their homes or in lockdown. They're basically prisoners in their own houses, all because of some flu. I mean, we've had this forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what our immune system is for. I mean, you look at Sweden. They just said, screw it. We're just going to do the herd mentality. And when you look at their numbers, they're on par with even the strictest lockdown, and they're all immune. So,
if you don't mind if I jump in, am I correct on remembering that Sweden did implement all of that, all the tracking software technology and all of that stuff, though?
I don't know anything about that. All I know is that Sweden did not lock down. Their intention was to go for herd immunity. They met it. They've had far fewer, cases of people passing away from it, even cases of people being infected with it. So let's say New York, they have 20 million people in New York. Sweden has about 10 million people, and they have half the cases of New York, and they never even locked down. So, Robert, part of me is hoping that this is another expose on people like Fauci and Birx and people on the left who were just screaming and crying about how terrible this was going to be. I think that a lot of people have woken up to the fact that this has been a snow job from the very beginning, and this is just another excellent example why those people and the things they say, they shouldn't be listened to, and we can obviously look to President Trump. We're opening up the country now. Things are getting back on track. It isn't happening soon enough for a lot of people. There's going to be lasting ramifications. But this could be an excellent opportunity for President Trump to say, I was given bad advice. He already said that Fauci and Birx told him 2.2 million people were going to die if he didn't lock the country down. We did, and it's been a complete wash. Methods and Corin, what do you guys think about it?
No, well, hold on real quick.
Yeah, no, go for it, please.
Yeah, I agree with Red Pill there on that. I can't always say that Trump's got everything going 110% chess. I know that we like to think that, and he does in a lot of different cases, but this whole situation in general was handled very poorly by other people than Trump, if that makes sense. Like Fauci and all that stuff, the inflated numbers definitely helped the media. Everybody was causing, a mess with that whole situation. So I can definitely agree with the concerns in general, but I will always lean back on my faith. I'll believe in how God is handling these things. I could see the writing on the wall that things are going to get better. They're not going to be able to keep going with this narrative when you have people like Flynn that's about to be able to talk. There's going to be a different world of conversation happening. And I think with the light therapy stuff that's going on, it's going to actually open up new doors to new health situations that are going on that are going to be able to be fixed, that were hidden before because it was more profitable for all that stuff to be going on. I think this is, the pain that needs to happen before we can get to what really needs to be for a future longer than the now, if that makes sense.
I have a point.
I sure hope you guys are right, man, because there's a lot of people, when you look at the country, we're certainly divided, right? You've got people on the left that just say, just basically just honker down and wait this thing out. It could take 2 years. And then you got people that are using their brains and they're like, wait a minute, the flu or suicide or somebody, just obesity kills far more than this does.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm really concerned about, though, is that people were so just quickly able to give up all their rights for something that hasn't been statistically proven. And actually, the stats actually prove the opposite. So if we're so quick to give this away now, all of our rights, our liberties, everything that our forefathers fought for, so many thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that came before us that fought for our rights, for our Constitution, if they went out and, you know, if they were in this situation, what would they do? Would they be out there picketing? Would they be out there protesting? Because next time they could just give away, you know, our rights again because of the next outbreak or something.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to, you know, touching on that, you know, it's really, because, you know, you see that there's a lot of individuals who consider themselves patriots and constitutionalists who went right along with it as well, without question. And I think that really has to do with a solid 30 plus years of conditioning to under these conditions, you know, with movies and shows and other events of similar nature. When people are watching something, they see everybody crowding together and the chaos. They're like, okay, if I don't behave that way, then everything will be okay. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So over years and years and years, you start looking at you know, let's just take Contagion, for instance. You know, if you're watching
Hollywood,
you know what I mean. But like, you know, just when after 30 plus years of being told, if this exact scenario happens, your best move is to do exactly what they tell you to do, or else it's going to be horrible for you, because of the way that they play out the scenarios and the stories. So, you know, that people might be responding to it, not even knowing why they're responding that way, knowing that their rights are being restricted, but they still are thinking that they're doing it because it's a fear-based way of thinking. You know, you're stuck in fear. And when you have an unknown, I look at this also, if you don't mind, if I just jump to it, it's just like after the Great Depression, when they spiked the interest rates and dropped the stock market. They used the financial collapse of America and the New Deal to hold people hostage, to get them to start accepting Social Security cards. So anybody who went on to one of the work jobs for the New Deal had to accept the Social Security card, which was a tracking identifier and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, for where they were at with how advanced they were technologically at that time. You know, to be able to track and deal with that. So to me, it's the same financial trick, holding everybody hostage financially. If you want one of these jobs, in order to get it, you have to get a Social Security card, and then we're going to take money out of your paycheck because you're now working for the federal government, and we're going to hold that for you for future use. You know, and now we're looking at the exact same scenario: a financial hostage, you know, being held hostage financially in order to accept a new system, which in order to go back to work. The same exact scenario, but it's just not a Social Security card. Now it's, you know, it's the next thing, you know.
Well, it works. Everybody
and works
for government cheese.
Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what caused me to first explode and do a rant on YouTube, which I'm a very private person and never like to really, you know, address certain issues in a public forum. But my buddy had been at a food bank in Conroe, Texas, and 2 carloads of people were fighting to get in to the same spot, and they got out of their cars, and it turned into like almost a full-on brawl, you know. And this was 2 weeks into the shutdown. So, and I was just like, man, if you go further than that, it's, you know, who knows what's going to happen. So, you know, that's what really, you know, kind of provoked me to dip my beak in a little bit. You know what I mean?
You know, if I could make just a couple of quick points. I mean, I would say that Trump and his administration must have known that this situation was coming. You know, I mean, we have, you know, China not being honest about, you know, when it started, where it started. But you have to believe that that the government and, you know, I mean, what they might have had in store, what they could have actually done, blaming it on CV-19, but actually having it be something else. You know, I mean, maybe perhaps a different mutation. Throughout the course of this, we've had exposure of the, you know, Birx and Fauci, people at the CDC. We've had a complete defunding of the World Health Organization. We've now got the entire news cycle devoted specifically to CV-19. And during this time, we have what appears to be now the exoneration of General Flynn about to hit the news this week. So what does that mean? That means that while the entire country has been focused solely on this one issue, President Trump, his administration, can now flip the narrative and force everybody's eyes onto this new single issue, General Flynn being exonerated, and all of the information and revelations that can come as a result of that. That's just my 2 cents. I mean, if it had happened at any other time, imagine the mainstream media, what they would have brought up and what they would have been able to use to spin to direct people away from it. You know, I mean, how many people even knew that there was a special prosecutor that had been presented for the purpose of looking over the case against General Flynn? I mean, that was news to many people. Happened at least back in January, and now we're bearing fruit from it. So, you know, I think that President Trump is a master in
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great points there, man, for sure. That's the hopium that we're all smoking, right? We're all hoping that this is you know what it's all about, man. Everything Q's been telling us is coming true, right? That's what we're hoping for. But my big concern though is, man, they got this little switch they have now. They got this switch that they just say something and then people just hunker down in their houses and they give up all their liberties and then they wait for the government cheese to bail them out. That's not how we're designed. That's not how our country was designed. That's not how we as prosperous people need to be. So I'm a little worried about that, and I just hope they kind of speed up the program a little bit faster, because I know that we're all hoping that everything you said is true and everything Q's been saying is true. And one thing I do know for sure though is until we have like an honest media, it's just going to be all of us in this echo chamber because we're not reaching a big enough amount of masses. I mean, when I walk around, I see everybody in masks. I don't see any of you guys in masks. I don't wear a mask. Trump don't wear a mask. No. Nobody wears a mask. Nobody's scared of this thing in our bubble, right? But outside of our bubble, there is everybody that's out there in fear and panic, and they got masks on, and they're judging you as you walk down the street because you're not wearing one, and they're wondering if you're essential or not essential and why you're out and about. And it's just, you know, it's a little scary, man. It's scary how this stuff could all just end up, you know, going the wrong way if we allow it to. And we need to repress.
I would say that the demonstrations we've had, patriots and conservatives coming out on the street, I think that shows me that they're not going to be able to do something like this again in the future. People are already suspect of it. They believe they've been lied to. They believe that there's clearly an element within the government and throughout the world that is looking to, just suppress people and specifically take away their rights. I don't think that people are going to stand for something like this happening again, because we're not going to be able to go and sustain it. All the businesses that were, near bankruptcy are already going to be gone. If the government doesn't do something to help those people in the same way that they did to help the banks back in 2008, people are going to revolt. Well, listen, Robert, I appreciate you, buddy. We've got a couple people. Yeah.
Hey, real quick, I've been trying to come in and chat about this because, to Robert's point, he's correct. It is to see how complicit people can get when it comes to being told what to do, and they immediately go to their houses and all that. Well, speaking from me being in the South, life hasn't changed for a lot of us down here. Like, we haven't changed, we're not that concerned about it. Yeah, there is having the jobs taken away and the income stuff obviously is a problem, but a lot of people down here are not wearing masks. They're not worried about it. We're not being told a lot of the things that you're seeing that people are having to protest over. And to another point about, being worried about everybody, stepping back and, letting the government tell them what to do. If Durham comes back, and I'll say this again, if Durham comes back and says everything was on the up and up in the 2016 election, everything was fine, no arrest happened or whatever, watch the revolt happen. And I'm not fueling it. I'm just saying, I can literally say nothing about it when it happens. Just delete my Twitter account, not do another show, and you will see it happen because of how many people are frustrated. And you'll see the true power of the American people. Yeah. But Red Pill and myself and everybody, a lot of people that follow us and stuff can agree, we don't expect for that to happen. So that's why we're not that concerned about it. But that kind of power that you want to see out of the American people happen, that's where that could be tested real quick.
Yeah, I'm here in Texas, and where I'm at, I mean, realistically, outside of, obviously the job thing is the most tragic and most ludicrous part of the whole entire deal. But it same here. I mean, I haven't I've been able to, go wherever I want to go. I've been able to do whatever I want to do. I haven't been having, any problems. There's, there's some restaurants, you can go and eat. And so I can go to Waffle House and eat at the counter there if I want to, crap like that. But that's just ridiculous to even be having this conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like crazy that these words are even coming out of my mouth to me are absolutely insane. I mean, going through the whole sovereignty movement in the 90s and the lead up to 9/11 and all of that, it was there was actually an incredible paper that was put out before 9/11 happened. I don't know if it was by Robert Cooper or who, but there was this it called it out, bro. And it had to do with the falling tower and in the tarot and all this stuff. But to see everything how it is now, I don't even see the sovereignty movement anymore. I don't even see the truther movement anymore.
Yeah.
The whole thing that happened after 9/11, that big ramp up with everybody trying to uncover the truth of that. Most of those guys are Antifa now. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, what the hell happened? Where did everybody go?
They crushed
Where did they go? I mean, it's just crazy.
Well, Robert, tell people where to find you.
Well, sunlight's always been the best disinfectant, my friends. So, that's it's kind of a no-brainer there, right? So I just hope that we all get through this with our sanity in check and our liberties in check, and we don't allow this to happen again or be relying on Trump or anybody for our government cheese for our way of life.
Yeah.
We need to be the ones basically sustaining our own well-being for our family, our friends, our loved ones, everyone. And so anyways, love everybody out there. God bless y'all. I'm super easy to find. You guys know the links. So anyways, you guys stay safe. Love you all. God bless.
Care, brother.
Take it easy, Robert. Thanks for the call, bud.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. We've got a couple other people on the line. Let me pull up. Hang on a sec. Oh, the next person that had called has hung up. So we're going to go to Lores, I believe the name is. Let me just say thank you to Filled with Hope. A quick shout out. Loved Stargate SG-1. You were awesome as Jonas. Trumpet 2020. Corin, during your gang days, do you remember a corn pop? Heard he was a real bad dude. John
hilarious.
John Howe says, I think there's another big point. How did it get this far? My theory is most of us must have been asleep over the last 40 to 50 years. I can tell you now, I see we the people that will never, ever allow this to happen again. Grandpappy Frog says, great show tonight, Red Pill and Methods and guests. Lionheart says, the real news, Red Pill 78, X22 report, and we know, Praying Medic, SGT report, the Patriot Hour, Golden State Times, and God Blessing America. And Richard Everett says, Jim Jones ploy, drink the COVID aid. They will not stop. Thomas C. Bryan, I'm retired and prepped up. This had no effect on me. Been telling people this was coming to prepare, and I'm the fool. Not so much anymore. Just saying. Yeah, my life really hasn't changed at all either. Lores, you are on the line. How's it going? Are you there, Lores?
Yes, Laura.
Okay.
Z is my last name.
Laura Z. Okay, well, Laura Z, welcome to the program. What's your question or comment for Corin?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'm just shutting my door.
Okay.
My computer was dying.
No problem.
I looked down, I was at 19%. It's a tragedy. Oh.
Well, what I'm interested in, because since this whole thing started, the only thing that runs through my mind is The Stand, which you were in.
Oh, yeah.
And the first time I ever seen you.
Yeah, that was a great. I had such a great time on that project. Me and the guy who was the head of catering on that project, he was a really great painter, and me and him got along really, really, really good. He was like my road dog during the almost 6 months I was on that production in Salt Lake City. That was a wild ride and rather prophetic, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a big fan of Stephen King before I understood his personal politics and stuff. But yeah, I love The Stand. Read that book as a kid, and definitely watched you in the miniseries. Molly Ringwald was in that too, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Gary Sinise too.
Yeah, Gary Sinise, a whole bunch of people. Yeah, I had the director of that. He wanted me to get some reactions out of Molly. So he would tell me, to go and she was really concerned about her space. You know what I mean? So he was always.
You mean like her personal bubble?
Yeah. So he would say, go and break her space. So I would go, and I had to wear this little fat suit in the beginning of the shoot. They gave me a little bubble butt and a little belly, and I would go and she'd be talking or hanging out somewhere on set, and I'd go and stand really close behind her, and I'd slowly back up until just my bubble butt would kind of touch her a little bit, where she would kind of go, and then she'd look over her shoulder, and I wouldn't react at all. I'd just stand there and not do a thing, and she would just sort of like fudge her way through her conversation and try to ignore me until she would just leave.
Oh, that's funny. All right, Laura, anything else for Corin?
Sorry. No, I was getting lost in the tale because I thought Molly was miscast in that show. They needed somebody else. I wasn't a Molly fan.
I understand.
16 Candles.
Yeah, I saw it, but I was in my 20s by then.
Right.
No, Gary Sinise deserved a better co-partner in this movie.
Yeah, I feel you.
All right. Well, Laura, I appreciate you calling in. Thank you for your call.
And this is my first time on Zoom, so I'm surprised it happened well.
Well, you did it right. Congratulations. Now you know how to, so next time, every weekend when we do the call-ins, you can call back.
Sounds good. Have a great one, guys.
You too, Laura. Appreciate it. All right, excellent. Thank you for that. True Grit said Flynn's exoneration, the shot will be heard around the world. With lockdown, millions will hear the truth. That's the point that I was trying to make earlier. I believe that to be the case. I completely understand what Robert was saying earlier as well. I mean, this is a serious thing, but from what I understand and what I know about President Trump and his feelings towards America, the Constitution, I feel there's nothing to worry about. I also understand that until everything comes to pass, we're just going to be acting on faith. Alexandria, Occasional Cortex is on the line.
Terrified me, man. That wasn't cool.
What's going on, brother?
Hey, great show. Doing good. This is the only mask I'm going to wear.
Okay.
I can recommend a few different ones.
I'm looking for my MAGA mask. Maybe I'll put that on just to troll. Well, hey, I was just curious, like in LA, since post-Trump, Epstein Q movement and everything, is there like groups that you used to like maybe do business with, but now you sort of got a different clue of maybe what's going on in the upper echelon? Like what comes to mind is Interscope Records, and they're not getting a lot of flack, but in Interscope Media, but just seeing their little their logo with the little swirly thing in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
Now, looks a little different. I can't look at it the same way, and work with a lot of people that, we're familiar with Interscope and others, but is there any ones that, other than
I had friends that were signed with Interscope and stuff, but well, I was saying earlier, I mean, all I know is rumor and speculation, because I never, I was always involved in my own world outside of the acting world. And although I certainly got a very, very good keyhole look into it, I understood it was wild enough for me as it was, you know what I mean? And the morals are so loose in LA as it is, that the furthering of opportunities to loosen it more, I was really concerned about, for my own, for myself, and my own spiritual journey that I was on. So, for instance, I was invited multiple times for numerous years to Playboy Mansion parties and all of that stuff. And I never went to one of them, not because I wasn't curious. I just didn't want to get myself into any kind of scenario that I would regret,
mm-hmm.
And also I didn't want to find myself associating in what that echelon was, you know what I mean? It just wasn't, I was more repelled by it than compelled to it, and that's just because of who I am as an individual, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that said, so anything that I would be able to say would be mostly purely speculative, secondhand information, and that kind of stuff. And And so I would never throw anybody under the bus or put a name out there that I wouldn't be able to validate from my own personal life experience.
Sure.
And also, I was just curious, is there anybody you can talk politics with in Los Angeles?
Yeah, man. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised, actually. But everybody knows that, you know, you keep that talk offset.
Right on. Well, hey, great.
Let me jump on, you know, just jumping in on that real quick. You know, I'm not Republican or Democrat. I don't hold a party affiliation. That's never been my thing. I've never even voted in my life. That's a whole nother story. I posted a video on my YouTube channel that says why I never voted. If you want to know why, you can go and listen to that. And you know, and that led up to this last election. And I have to see, you know, how I'm feeling as things progress throughout the rest of this year, because I've never registered to vote, and there was a specific reason for that. So my registering to vote is something that I have to look at, because I have a spiritual reason why I never did that. Because, you know, we're not dealing with the United States of America. We're dealing with a corporation, a corporate fiction that was established after the Civil War that operates in place of the United States of America. So we're voting CEOs in and out of office. We're not voting for presidents of the United States of America. And that's, you know, that's one of the hangups that I have about it. But you know, it's a CEO, and there's a CEO in there, and I think that, you know, that we got to see. For me, I got to see what you know, from what I've seen. And this is the only thing I'm looking at, is somebody in office that's making decisions, regardless of their personality, that is benefiting the American people and the American way of life, which is something that I'm passionate about. And I do see a pattern of that answer being yes. Mm-hmm. And when I see that pattern of the answer being yes, it makes me feel more and more and more comfortable with, you know, everything that's going on, because he has a lot of power right now. And the globalists have us in a financial grip. Yes, he has the Federal Reserve is folded under the Treasury. Yes, but the rest of the world isn't. Mm-hmm. And that's where the international bankers are waiting, drooling, for their chance at the final clause in the back of America, because America's been taken over, guys, since just after the Civil War, when they incorporated the country and when they passed the Federal Reserve Act in 1913. Mm-hmm. That's it. America's taken over. They've just been milking the cow ever since. You have to, he got the Federal Reserve back, but now you have to dissolve the corporation. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that through the sovereignty movement that I learned all about. This has nothing to, that's why we don't have constitutional rights. That's why they can pass executive orders. That's why they can put these draconian measures on us, because it's like being in the Wizard of Oz. We're in Kansas, but we're not in Kansas. You know what I'm saying?
Right. This is it. I'm glad you brought it up, because this is something we're going to be talking about on Friday when my guests Deb and Scott are here. Scott did a documentary called What the FUQ, Frequently Unanswered Questions, about this very topic in Australia. They're also going to be talking about Nasara and Gasara. So it's going to be a pretty big, expansive show on all these topics. And this is something that, I've hinted at on the program before, but I don't have a lot of information about it. I just know that it is the case, and it's what we have here in America. AOC, thanks for your call, bud. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yep, we'll talk to you soon.
Later. Bye.
All right, and bringing in the next caller. Let's see. We've got, actually, we'll go for Scott next. Scott's going to be coming in. And while we're waiting for Scott's microphone to get put on, Trinity Red Pill Blue Pill, hi-ho Kermit the Frog here, says, any research on closing meatpacking plants and poultry and those sick and dying, plus radon gas poisoning. Follow meat, nuclear radon maps, see clusters. The only thing that I've heard about is that there has been a lot of meatpacking plants owned by China, which have closed down here in the United States recently. I mean, this particular thread, Trinity, I'm just going to go ahead and copy your super chat so that I can do some more research after the show.
I am surprised why there hasn't been the use of the, with the Emergency Powers Acts and all that, forcing those pork plants to stay open,
or nationalizing them.
I mean, even, you know, you can force them to remain open at this point, you know, and that has been kind of itching me a little bit, because they've also taken, which was a smart move, taken all the vegetables and sent them to all of the you know, a lot of the produce that wasn't bought, the administration purchased it, has sent it to food banks. A lot of the milk that wasn't bought has been sent to make into powdered milk to also go to food banks. But now what we're talking about is, at a certain point, now all of this food is going to be gone. And then if the meat industry is being shut down, we're being set up for a food shortage.
Very possibly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got Scott on the line now. Scott, are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, buddy. Thanks for calling. What's your question for Corin?
What do y'all think about the boy that cried wolf? You know, we're going to keep going through these hoaxes over and over and over, and then when something really happens, what are we going to do?
Corin?
Well, my personal opinion is being more concerned with bioweapons than anything else, you know, and the intentional or accidental release or use of those, you know, on a mass scale. It wouldn't really matter what would happen at that point in terms of choices that they make from the top down. But it is a you know, when you do, I have looked at the numbers like everybody else on this platform has, and they all stink, you know. And when you look at the numbers coming from the boots on the ground level, it makes sense, and none of the shutdown makes sense, obviously. And then, you know, but then that gets into what we talked about earlier, was well what's the point? They have achieved the goal of shutting down the economy of the world. Now they have the economy of the world held hostage. So, you know, my concern there is that you know, even with nationalizing, and then if you dissolve the corporate U.S. and you go back to the United States of America as it is, as a republic, and we start issuing congressionally approved currency that's backed by gold and all of that, you know, it's about the other countries and the banking system in the other countries that becomes the major issue, because there could be a standoff, which would be horrifying, you know, a Cold War standoff.
Mm-hmm. All right, Methods, you got anything you want to put on there?
As far as the boy cried wolf theory in general, I don't know exactly what our caller was referring to specifically.
How many times they've said, "Oh, this is coming out. This is coming out. This is what's going to happen."
You got the Russia hoax.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. I see what you mean.
Yeah. Then you got, you know, hoax after hoax after hoax after hoax after hoax, and then, you know, 9/11 was a hoax. Mm-hmm. Almost every election we've had has been a hoax. You know, they wouldn't let us vote if it was real. You know, all that kind of stuff. You know, I'm getting to the point where I just don't believe anything except what you guys, you know, in our circle, I guess is the way to put it. Yeah. What y'all telling, that's about all I kind of look at and try to still read between the lines and do research myself.
Well, looking at it, yeah.
Let me, Corin, to that point, that's exactly the outcome that would be wanted and expected in all this, right? Where you're like, okay, fine, I can't trust these people. They keep bringing up this stuff that's obviously a lie. They're quickly debunked with just actual facts. So now I'm going to go look up the information for myself, right, Scott? Well, think about that. Shouldn't we have always been doing that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
You see what I mean? And that's what I think a part of what the Great Awakening is really about.
Exactly.
Is that us actually giving a damn to look up this information, finding it out, making the decision for ourselves. And then a lot of this movement has children, right? We're creating a new generation of people that are being raised under, don't just read the headlines real quick, find out the actual truth. And that's how we create change for generations that will live way on past us.
Absolutely. I think you said it about as good as it can be said, Methods. All right, Scott, thanks for your call, buddy.
Yes, sir. Y'all be good.
All right, you do the same. All right, you guys, we have basically reached the end of the program. Populous 8 said, loved watching you, Corin, on SG1. Hey all, what's up with POTUS and the disinfection injection? Media going crazy. I'm a bit lost on that one. I think POTUS was, pointing directly to the alternative treatments that we know exist and that we're not allowed to discuss. Lighthearted Lori, thank you, Corin. You are spot on. And Miami Chris, I've tried to call in Zoom code WTF. Zoom code would be the meeting and password ID that you see up on the screen. But like I said, we're at the end of the program. So Corin, I want to give you the last word. I mean, what do you think's going on here? What does the future hold?
Man, dude, it's you and your loaded questions, bro. You really know how to spring them on someone, don't you? Again, I'm looking at it coming out of that sovereignty movement of the 90s and looking at it from the dissolving of a corporation and the reinstituting congressional law, common law, and the rights of, because from what I understand, each state also incorporated similar to the unit. So every state has kind of a same corporate type structure as the U.S. Corp. So my point is that for a long time it hasn't been our corporation. So that's why we haven't really had so much the choice, and when we have had the choice and popular vote has won, there's always been someone else stuck in there next to the one in office just in case they have to eliminate the front man. I just am looking at it. It's a miracle that when he rolled the Federal Reserve into the Treasury, I have a couple of old friends from the sovereignty movement that were pretty shocked. They're still very, very, I'll tell you this right now. Most of the people I know that are old school heads in the sovereignty movement are still really gun shy about the current administration. That's what my feel has been. And I understand why, because we're so used to getting head fakes all the time. That's all that we get. And so if something really, but they also have been tracking very closely with the choices and decisions that have been being made in the process and are extremely curious about what's happening. They're like, wait a second, could this be the dissolving of U.S. Corp? Or, is it the dissolving of the U.S. Corp and the falling into a New World Order program? That's what they're scared of. They're scared that this is going to be a dissolution into the globalist network.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think everybody knows how I feel about it. I don't think that's the direction we're going in. Right. I have so much hope in President Trump. I mean, everything that has happened in, the last 4 years since he came into office, I think this would have been unthinkable, going back 8 years. I mean, I don't think that many of us could have anticipated, all of these movements that were going to happen. So I'm holding out, judgment on President Trump. I do believe that he's taking us in the right direction, and I will have to say that I can't imagine that he would put us into a globalist system. I mean, he can
take punches. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I'll just to address it really quick. If the whole thing was a head fake, like has happened in the past, there would be absolutely no reason to have made a lot of the decisions that have been made. Point of reference, the making gun stores an essential item.
Yeah.
If this was a globalist takeover, there'd be no reason to do that.
Yeah.
As far as the Q movement phenomenon, when I'm looking at that from an observational perspective, there would be absolutely no reason for something like that if we were just going to roll blindly into a globalist system. It just makes no sense. None of it would make any sense, really. So I think that this is what some of the older cats that I talk to still is piquing their interest most, is they keep seeing the red flags turning green. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, Corin, thank you for being here tonight. Methods, as always, thanks for being with us as well. One last super chat. Corin, how did you manage to stay out of trouble with the law while being in a gang and still maintain your acting career? I'm going to have to ask you to do a video about that on your channel.
I had a very good lawyer. I had the best fixer in town.
And then Michael Smagas says, low on money in Arizona, but doing what I can. No need to call me out. All right. Well, Mikey, still thanks for being here. Thank you, everybody, for helping out tonight. Thank you to the mods. Thank you to Methods. Thank you to Corin. Appreciate y'all so much, and we'll see you around. Good luck and God bless, everyone.
Hey, man, you too.